Welcome back to The Weekend. As the 2024 campaign season ramps up, so have the threats of political violence. Just hours before Donald Trump appeared in court for the closing arguments in the civil fraud case against him, police responded to a bomb threat at the home of Judge Arthur Engoron, who's presiding over the case. It is the latest instance in a surge of violent threats and intimidation tactics against the former president's perceived enemies, threats that undermine the law and order that Donald Trump claims to cherish. Judge Tanya Chutkan, who is overseeing the election interference case against Donald Trump, as well as special counsel Jack Smith, the prosecutor in that case, were both targeted in swatting incidents over the last 3 weeks. Similar incidents occurred against the Maine Secretary of State, whose office address Donald Trump posted on his little website after he was removed from the 2024 primary ballot in the state. And against the Colorado Supreme Court, which ruled Trump ineligible for its state's presidential ballot last month. These acts are not just a threat to the individuals they target. They're a threat to democracy itself. Take a look at this January 6th anecdote from a 2021 profile of then Representative Peter Meijer, who was ousted from Congress after voting to impeach Trump. Meijer approached a member who appeared on the verge of a breakdown. He asked his new colleague if he was okay. The member responded that he was not, that no matter his belief in the legitimacy of the election, he could no longer vote to certify the results because he feared for his family's safety. It is that fear, folks, in some instances, that's getting Republicans to fall in line behind Trump. There are countless factors that elected officials must wrestle with before casting a vote. But the threat of violence, I don't think it should ever be one of them. I mean,
Well, the reality is it's on us. It's on us.
Wait, who is the us? Who is us?
We the people, U.S., us, because we're tolerating this. We're not holding these legislators and this former president and his ilk responsible for what is happening right now.
I think
versus what will be happening.
I think the Republican Party apparatus is not holding people responsible, because I know a lot of people who are very, very disturbed and upset and who are scared, like the election poll workers. Think about Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who literally cannot go home.
Right.
So many people have literally been begging for accountability. And frankly, if it wasn't for the January 6th committee, we probably wouldn't even be seeing all of Donald Trump on the cusp of this accountability.
That's exactly the point. And so to that end, I want to put up, if we could, the polling that's showing that 85% of Americans are concerned about this. So we see, to your point, that energy kind of generating itself out there, where they're very concerned and somewhat concerned about what's happening. But now the question becomes, I think, as this thing ramps up, and we're going to see this from this president, former president. I mean, he's already laying out, when a man tells you he wants to be somebody's retribution and he wants to be a dictator, the natural thing that flows from that, if he doesn't get his way, if he doesn't like the outcome or the result of things, is going to be violence. So the question is, how do we as citizens guard ourselves against that? How do we protect each other from that? Because it's on us ultimately. We just don't sit back and let MAGA folks run the street because they mad at us. That's just not how this gets to play out, in my view.
Well, and I take Simone's point that you made in the intro, which is, in as much as there is the threat of violence itself, there is the threat then that does to our democracy, that makes to our democracy, and the way that gets in the way of governance. So I'm thinking, for example, of something we learned this week, that about a third of Jack Smith's budget is going to security because of the number of threats. I mean, those are taxpayer dollars. You can't talk, right, about wanting to be a fiscal conservative. You can't say that you're holding up a spending bill because you are worried about the deficit and then continue to pour gasoline on a fire that is not only inherently dangerous, but is expensive. Yeah. You are spending government resources on a problem that you have created.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I ask you then, what do people who are still Republicans, who don't really like Donald Trump's
Right.
vitriol and whatnot, but are in private, they say all the things we've heard our friends say in private, but in public are still supporting him. What is it going to take for those folks to band together with the 85% and say we're not going to stand for this?
Yeah, Simone, that is such a good question, and I think I would love to hear more of those voices come out and stand on street corners and Capitol steps in neighborhoods and really speak to that. When swatting occurs, speak out against it. When, judges are attacked and verbally or otherwise, speak out against it. This idea, look, I get the politics of not wanting to, engage politically around some crazy stuff that comes out of Trump's mouth about the economy or Bidenomics or whatever. But this is personal. This is people's lives. These are families and communities that are impacted. The fact that this man, this former president, stands and jokes about the attack on Mr. Pelosi, the former speaker's husband, with a hammer, and makes fun of that, and people are sitting there applauding it like oafs. We as citizens have to say, no, that's not who we are, because you know what, folks? Your family's next. Your community's next. Because if you countenance that kind of violence, don't think it just the water's edge is politics. It spills over. It becomes every other thing. You're standing in the grocery store and you just happen to say, I just think Donald Trump is crazy. And then someone throws a can of beans at your head. What are you going to do then? Who do you blame for that?